Well, Supergirl is now open and in theaters, and it is failing. It failed on a couple levels. Number one, I thought it failed to be a good enough movie. We've already reviewed it, so we won't relitigate the whole thing and re-review it again. But I will just say this. I do think it had some things going for it. I thought it did some things well. It is not nearly as bad as like the big Sony triumvirate of Kraven the Hunter, of Madam Web, of Morbius. Like, it's decidedly better than those movies. But overall, it was a pretty poor film. And for me, when you're talking about Supergirl, you're talking about what I never thought Supergirl had to be a big film. I thought the first couple of films coming out of the new DC, the most important thing was reestablishing the reputation of DC that the old DCEU had burned down. And they did a triumphant start with Superman, massive critic scores, massive audience scores, made more money at the box office despite DC's reputation being in the trash can, made more money than the previous 7 DCEU films. Great start. They didn't need Supergirl to be a big box office film, but they needed it to be really good, and it wasn't. It's all subjective. Maybe you saw it and you enjoyed it, and if you did, I respect that completely. But I can only speak from my own perspective. It was a poor film. It was a poor film. And word of mouth seemed to get around to it because Supergirl opened, as we expected, in second place behind Toy Story. You guys remember last week somebody wrote in, do you think the chances of Toy Story being number one again? It's like, of course Toy Story is going to be number one again. It's only going to drop between 50 and 60%, which means it's going to make like $70 million in its second weekend. And I don't think anybody believes Supergirl is going to make $70 million on its opening weekend. So that's fine. But I still thought it needed to get that 50, 55 million. As you can see here, it only managed to scrape out $38 million. And I think a part of that has to do with the fact that word of mouth got around and was pretty damn negative. Word of mouth got around and it was pretty damn negative. As we can see here in the, I believe this one's from Deadline, Minis and Monster Blood, $10 million global box office update. Supergirl falls to earth with only 68 million. That's 68 million worldwide. 68 million worldwide. So again, I think early word of mouth got out there that this thing was bad. I think there was going to be a lot of people on the fence about whether or not to go see Supergirl. If the reviews had come out and been pretty solid, I think it could have gotten to that 50 million, but unfortunately the movie didn't warrant it. And it's now in here, comes out 38 million. And listen, I want to paint perspective here for you when you hear me say this. In case you're watching this clip on YouTube or you're new around here, I understand there's a lot of rage bait grifter bloggers, podcasters, YouTubers who just try to out-hate each other and just say all this crap to whore themselves out to get as many rage clicks as they can. I'm not one of those people. I'm a big supporter. I'm a big James Gunn fan. I am a big supporter of DC. I have been wanting great things for Supergirl. I love the Superman movie. I do. So when you hear me say that Supergirl failed in both of its missions, to be a quality film and it didn't need to make big money, but you at least want to make respectable money. That's coming from the perspective of somebody who's a big fan of and a big person who cheers for DC. Okay. I'm not one of these rage posters. I'm a fan. I want it to succeed. And I'm saying this disappointed in quality and thus has disappointed in its box office results. But I also want to keep this in perspective, guys. I want to keep this in perspective. When Superman had its triumphant entry and was beloved by the critics, beloved by the audience, started to salvage DC's reputation, made more money than the previous 7 DCEU films, all that kind of stuff. I could not say that that's it. It's 100%. DC's back. Woo! Everything's great again. It's like, no, great start. Great start. In the same way, I see after, let's call it what it is, this failure of Supergirl, I see a lot of people wanting to pronounce, well, that's it, DC's dead. Well, it's like, no. hold your horses. In as much as one triumph didn't win the game, it was a good start. One misfire does not kill DC. It does not kill the DCU. As a matter of fact, I want to take you guys back a little bit. There's another little franchise that you might have heard of called the MCU. For those of you who don't know, that stands for the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Really?
It's a pretty big thing. Had a lot of success. And its start is now reminding me eerily of the new DCU. In that the first Iron Man movie came out, big win. Made big box office money, big critic scores, big audience scores, and Marvel was off and running. But I do want to remind everybody that it had another film come out. The second film that just came out had probably the best supporting performance in any film in history by an Italian-Canadian guy. I can't remember his name. But the first Iron Man movie comes out, big box office, $585 million, 94% critic score, 91% audience score. Everybody's happy. Woo! Marvel's off to a great start. And then the very next movie they put out was The Incredible Hulk. The Incredible Hulk took a massive dive compared to the previous film, the previous Marvel film, in that it only made less than half the money that the previous one did. And its critic and audience scores were both significantly lower than the first film's was. So in relation to the first film going to the second film, yes, the second film was very disappointing in terms of the box office results, in terms of the critic scores, in terms of the audience scores. Significantly lower than the first movie. Significantly lower. As a matter of fact, this may surprise you, but the audience scores for Supergirl are higher than what the audience scores were for The Incredible Hulk. Did you know that?
Nope.
Just so you know, the audience scores for Supergirl are actually higher than they were for The Incredible Hulk. So here you had Marvel with coming out of the gate with its first film, big success monetarily, critic-wise, audience-wise. Then the follow-up film took a massive nosedive in all three areas. That is kind of the... Now, did that mean that Marvel was then doomed? That after, the second film completely fell on its face compared to the first film. Ooh, it's over. Marvel has no future. No. Any more than the first Iron Man film meant guaranteed success, a falling on its face second film did not guarantee failure. This is very similar to what we had happen there. Again, so am I going to write off DC because one film? Listen, guys, so far, we've only had 2 films, but we've had several DCU projects. Peacemaker, other than the season finale, which was not so good, but Peacemaker season 2 was great. I surprisingly like Creature Commandos quite a bit. And we've got Green Lantern, well, we got Lanterns, and we've got Clayface coming. So just like I was saying, guys, yes, great start with Superman. Let's not start throwing any parades yet. I would also say, hold off on the funeral plans until we get a little bit further in, because you're going to look just as stupid as those naysayers for the MCU kind of sounded like after The Incredible Hulk came out. It was just one film. So anyway, Rob, let's go over to you on this. You and I both didn't like the film, so we already kind of established it was kind of a failure in its quality-wise. But $38 million, even though it never needed to make a ton of money, that's got to be considered hurt. How big of a role do you think the early negative word of mouth played in that? And what do you think that means for the DCU moving forward?
Well, I think you're a little optimistic about what's happening here. I really didn't like the movie at all. And not only that, I was angry when I was watching it because, like you pointed out, we already have the MCU. And we can look at the history and we can look at what the problems are with what the DC universe was doing and what the Marvel Cinematic Universe was doing. And James Gunn came out. I went back and read some articles, all the way back in 2021. He was talking about, well, we're not going to move forward and unless we have the right script. And he was talking a big game. And to me, this movie had to do a lot of things in addition to expanding out the universe. And I think that it didn't do any of the things that it needed to do to help the new DC universe. And I was perplexed by this, especially because it was derived from a comic book that had artwork that's very reminiscent of Mobius, that's quite stunningly beautiful artwork, full of color and just beauty. And the villain certainly did not look like a reject from a Mad Max movie. And I was perplexed by almost every creative choice that this movie made. Now, I love Millie Alcock. I think she's a great actress. And I think she was completely underserved by this material. I also think that, as we know, the movie had 3 different composers, never a good sign. You can tell that the movie, just watching the movie, I'm sure it was supposed to open with the Argo City sequence, the destruction of Krypton and all of that. So it sets up some kind of an emotional context. But worse than that, the Superman mythos, the Superman franchise as a whole, if you look at anything all the way back to the original Superman, to any iteration of Superman, it is a romantic franchise. The idea of flying, Superman's always had Lois Lane, and there's always been sort of a, we as viewers and experiencers, there's a romantic notion to it all. And this was a movie that had no whimsy. It had the original James Gunn's Superman had such a wonderful Silver Age palette to it. You had kaiju, you had pocket universes, you had Mr. Terrific, you had Crypto, you had Hawkgirl, you had Guy Gardner with his goofy haircut. You had all of this. It was fun. It was fun. I did not have fun in this movie. I didn't feel any sense of romance. I didn't feel any sense of whimsy. I never felt any sense of larger than life elation. I mean, there was no moment where I felt really much of anything other than that I needed to take a shower because everything was so brown. And I was perplexed by this, especially coming off of Superman, because I get the story, but even the material that was being adapted, they didn't serve that material well. It's like every directorial choice was wrong. And I just, more than anything, I don't understand it. I don't understand how you follow up. I mean, if you're going to make a Supergirl movie, you have an audience of women. 50% of our audience is underserved by these kinds of movies. And I don't think that this is a mother-daughter movie. And more than anything, it didn't serve that audience. And I don't understand why. And that was why I was so perplexed. And is it the end of the DC universe? I don't think it's the end of the DC universe. We have Lanterns coming. We have Clayface coming. I'm looking forward to both of those things. I think Lanterns, by the way, is going to rule.
By the way, side note, I've talked to somebody not involved with Warner Brothers who has seen the first 3 episodes. They say it's absolutely banger. They absolutely loved what they saw.
I can't wait, dude.
I think it's going to be awesome. I can't.
And I've always said, every IP, every franchise is one step away from something great. And if Lanterns is great, then okay, this is a misstep. That's all. I mean, I want to see this universe succeed because I love DC. But I do think that this was a failure on a number of levels that I don't understand. And I'm really curious to see what the postmortem is on all of it. But it was a movie that I wanted to feel a sense of awe and wonder. I wanted it to be badass. I just didn't feel it at all. And I'm perplexed by that.
Look, it's easy to play Monday morning quarterback, right? It's easy after the fact to look back. Because like you and I, we've talked about this on the show a lot. We have both read scripts that we thought looked really good before their movies came out. And then the movies came out. It's like, well, yeah, this is the movie from that script, but holy crap, the movie sucks. I remember the first time for me, it was that Clash of the Titans remake.
Oh, yeah.
With Sam Worthington.
Yep.
I remember somebody sent me the script to that months before the movie came out. I'm like, oh my God, this movie's going to be really good.
Yep.
And then I saw the movie. It's like, yep, this is that script, but the movie sucks. It is, again, it's easy to play Monday morning quarterback and to look backwards at what went wrong. So that's what we're doing. We're playing Monday morning quarterback, but it does really make me question the wisdom of getting a really inexperienced screenwriter to do a major, like every screenwriter has to have their first film, but I don't think you make your first film a major tentpole film like Supergirl. Right. And this is the same person who right now they have working on the Wonder Woman movie. And now that makes me really nervous. And I think they need to go back and revisit that now. And not that I think this writer should never work again. Okay, they came out of the gate, wrote a bad script. Doesn't mean you can't write the next one's going to be great, but I don't want them working on Wonder Woman now. I don't want them working on...
Right.
And I think they need to pivot here a little bit in terms of their creative talent and go on. So again, look, we've got Lanterns coming. We've got Clayface coming. I have very little doubt that Man of Tomorrow is going to be awesome because, again, it's James Gunn writing and directing it. But again, I think James Gunn is going to have... I've said this for almost a year now, guys. I think James Gunn needs to make a decision. Am I going to be really active in writing and directing these films, or am I going to be the CEO of this company and do the job that's required there? Because I remember talking with, I spoke with Kevin Feige once. I was doing the, a press day. I was the moderator for a press day for Avengers Age of Ultron. So before we started the panel, I was standing behind the building. Kevin Feige pulls up in a golf cart. And I'm like, how you doing? And remember, they only had 3 movies coming out at this point. And Kevin Feige was exhausted. He was exhausted because it took 20 hours of his day just overseeing the proper development of 3 Marvel projects that were going on. You can't tell me that you can properly do that job and be a 24-hour-a-day, 2 years committed to making an individual film. You can't do both. And I think James Gunn has got to pick one or the other. And we'll see. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? Not only did Supergirl disappoint in terms of quality, and again, not taking anything away from those of you who enjoyed it. I know a bunch of you did like it, and that's great. We're only speaking from our own perspective here. But not only did Supergirl fail to make a good movie, word of mouth seemed to get out, and it came in at a very disappointing $38 million in its opening weekend. This movie's going to tank. What do you think caused that? Whatever you guys think about the whole thing, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts.